Johnson, live at the True Bookstore, Hartford, Connecticut, first time in the state of Connecticut. This presentation right here is one of my introductory PowerPoints on how European psychology is used to control the minds of African people. I call this Manufacturing Madness, the political abuses of European psychology against the African mind. Now, when you talk about psychological diagnoses, I need y'all to understand that the diagnoses that are given to African people go back to slavery. There were two very prominent mental illness diagnoses that were given to slaves. The first one was called drapetomania. Drapetomania was a mental illness that was created by a white racist psychologist out of New Orleans, Louisiana. In fact, when I spoke in New Orleans last spring, in one of the museums there in the French Quarter, they had a whole exhibit on drapetomania, Dr. Cartwright's creation. What is drapetomania? A mental illness that any escaping slave would be diagnosed with. In other words, wanting to be free was a sickness. The disease was freedom. Any black who ran away from his master would be classified with drapetomania. Now listen to what the cure was. The cure to a slave with drapetomania was to whip the living shit out of him. That was the cure. Fast forward to 2013, ADHD is the new drapetomania. All they do is take behavioral syndromes of black people that they consider to be maladaptive or threatening to the American social order, and then they demonize them. The next one is nigritude. These are real, by the way. This is what they diagnose black people with. Nigritude was a psychiatric diagnosis given to enslaved Africans that was created by Dr. Benjamin Rush. Not that you should necessarily know who he was, but for the sake of the conversation, Benjamin Rush was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. He was a good friend with many of America's founding fathers and presidents. He lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he was the chief of medicine at Pennsylvania Hospital. He was also the first president of the American Psychiatric Association, or what would become to be known as the American Psychiatric Association. He said that all black people had a psychological illness that rendered their brain useless and feeble. And he said the number one symptom of this disease called nigritude was dark skin. And the darker your skin was, the more retarded you were likely to be. And he told white people that the blackness in black people's skin, the melanin, was contagious. And if you rubbed up against black people, you could catch nigritude. So he put forth the first biological basis for segregation. Again, the new nigritude is conduct disorder. The new nigritude is opposition or defiant disorder. Now, just like drapetomania and nigritude, you cannot prove them. You cannot objectively determine if somebody got nigritude because white people made it up. You cannot objectively determine if somebody really has ADHD because white people made it up. So we got to understand that the reason why these psychological diagnoses are so popular is because you can't prove that they exist one way or the other. So everybody can get classified. Next week, I want all y'all to go out and buy the DSM-5. That's the new Bible of psychiatry. All of our diagnoses come out that book. Every 10 years, they come out with a new Bible of diagnoses. DSM-5 comes out next week or the week thereafter, and the ADHD diagnosis has been expanded to allow for even more children to be classified with ain't no daddy at home disorder, ADHD. The other thing that's interesting about the DSM book is that homosexuality was listed as a mental illness. You don't believe me? Go online, Amazon News Book, find you a DSM-2, and see if homosexuality is in that book as a mental illness. Having sexual attraction for somebody with the same reproductive organ was a sickness even in white culture. In 1973, they changed it. What happened? In 1972, the Rockefeller World Population Council and Planned Parenthood International had a meeting where they decided that homosexuality should be declassified as a sickness, treated as normal, so it could be pushed, not just among blacks in America, but blacks around the world, as a legitimate form of marriage to do what? Curtail the birth rate of black people. We just had a homosexuality parade in Ghana. We just had a homosexuality parade in Nigeria. Where do all these African countries all of a sudden got a homosexual problem? They never had it for millions of years, but they got one now. Because they're trying to do what? Push homosexuality, because the more gay people, the less children are born. Because gay people can't have kids. We got to understand that. Every time you see a homosexual couple, you're seeing the absence of 2 or 3 children they may have had they been heterosexual. That's the whole purpose of this. It is population control. That's the same reason that the FDA has been ordered to make the morning after pill available in the drugstores for anybody 15 or older. It's about African extermination. Former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Before she resigned, and y'all know why she resigned. She resigned because she plans to run for president, and she want to make sure that she's distanced herself enough from President Obama that when she does run, none of his failures will be blamed on her. That's what that's about. I don't know if she's going to be the next one selected by the Bilderberger, but it's important that y'all know that y'all don't choose presidents you never had. I don't know where Negroes get this thing about, well, who was we supposed to vote for? You didn't have to vote at all because you don't choose presidents. Now, you choose governors, you choose state reps, U.S. reps, congresspersons. You do not choose the president. If you don't believe me, go to the United States Constitution. You can get it, you can print it, look it up on the internet. What does it tell you? That the president of the United States is chosen by who? The Electoral College. The United States Constitution has never said the president is supposed to be chosen by majority vote. And who chooses the Electoral College? Rich, white, property-owning men with power and privilege, not people. Presidents are chosen when? 4 years before schedule. Presidents are always chosen 4 years before schedule. So before 2015 kicks in, since this is the first year of Obama's re-election, they would have already decided who's going to replace Obama. So whether there's Hillary or whether it's somebody else, they're automatically going to know who that person is going to be. Okay? But something else about, let me go back to what I was saying. So 1972, the Rockefellers and Planned Parenthood said we need to make this normal so we can push it on black people. 1973, the year before I was born, American Psychiatric Association had the annual convention where they voted to take homosexuality out of the DSM. 1974, April, I'm August of 74. So this is April of 74, a couple months before I was born. That's the first time you see homosexuality removed from the DSM. That means homosexuality has only been normal in America for 38 years. Here's the question for everybody. How did something go from mental illness to civil rights in 38 years? From mental illness to civil rights in 38 years. It was a plan of the population control junkies. Push that gay thing and we reduce black life. That's why they pushing it all through Africa now. This ain't about sex, brothers and sisters. It ain't even about culture. It's about political strategy and racial annihilation. But if you look at the culture of homosexuality, it's going to take you back to Greece and Rome. Because that's where the lifestyle was actually originated. Okay, most of the Greek philosophers, Epictetus, Aristotle, Plato, all those guys were homosexual. Okay, Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, homosexual. And why? Because foundational to Greco-Roman culture was what? The woman as demon. In those cultures, the women was considered to be the handmaiden of Satan. Remember? Y'all made Adam bite the apple, if you believe that stuff. Okay? So because the woman was the handmaiden of Satan, the Greco-Roman philosophers and the Roman Catholic Church said that a man who is the representative of God would not deal with a devil, who is the woman. He should be better off dealing with another God, a man. And that was the basis of homosexuality. That was the basis of homosexuality. Also, when you go to Greco-Roman culture, what do you find? You find that there's a strong relationship between what? Pedophilia and homosexuality back then. Not only were many of the philosophers and members of the Roman Catholic Church, not only were they gay, many of them were pedophilia gay. Okay, they like boys. For example, if you look at some of the Greek paintings, you always see what around the god? When you look at Zeus and Apollo, what do you see? Little boy angels with wings. Little boy angels with wings. Well, guess what? Those little boy angels with wings was nothing but the sex slaves of the gods. And when you read about the history of the gods, Aquape, and Zeus and some of the other ones, it tells you in the mythology that they like to sleep with boys. The gods like to sleep with little boys. What's the real popular word in the African American community? Mentor. Do you know where that word come from? That's a Greco-Roman word. You know what a mentor was? The mentor was the white male in Greco-Roman culture who would take the boy and sodomize him into a life of homosexuality. That's what a mentor was. You reverse the word, what do you get? Torment, sexual tormentor. Which is why we shouldn't even be using the word mentor, because that got homosexual connotations. That's how deep the culture has been pushed. So we go now. Oh, let me go back again. So homosexuality in the DSM is removed in 74. Same year, what did we get? Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, what did he do? He put out in 1974 the NSSM 200, National State Security Memorandum 200. What was the purpose of the NSSM 200? Same year that we get the first DSM saying homosexuality is normal. NSSM 200 was a population control policy document. And in the NSSM 200, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who was a Bilderberg and a member of the CFR and a trilateral, said that the United States government should start teaching what? Sex education in the public schools. Remember, you started getting sex ed when? In the 80s. We thought it was what? To make sure our kids didn't get STDs. To make sure they understand the birthing process. To make sure they knew how to use birth control pills and condoms. That wasn't what it was about. That was a prelude to homosexual studies, which is what you got coming now. That was the setup. Get the black parents to buy into sex education. Come on in, good sister. Get the black parents to buy into sex education. And then once they bought into sex education, remix it into homosexual education. I don't know if one of you sisters want a chair. Remix it to homosexual education. Okay? Now, who was the first state to approve homosexual curriculum mandatory? California. Right now in California, and I've been, they're required to teach the children about the great history of gay people. Right now. This is a part of the school curriculum. Who else has it? New York City Public Schools. It is a part of the social studies curriculum. And what a lot of states are doing, your state may have done it too, without telling you, they are infusing homosexual studies into the social studies curriculum. Some of our children are getting textbooks with 2 men as the family, 2 women as the family. And we don't even know because we don't look at the pictures in the textbooks. The gay movement is already here. And this is why I'm telling a lot of my African-centered educators, stop going into the charter schools and keep your own school. Because when that gay curriculum comes through Hartford, you're going to have to teach that, even with a dashiki and a drum, because you're not independent. And that's why the only schools we need to have is independent schools, because we control them. Independent schools, they can't force special ed on you. They can't force the gay curriculum. You run that school. And what excuse do we have for not having our own schools? What excuse do we have? We don't have an excuse. How much money do black people gross in America? $1 trillion. $1 trillion is what we gross every year in the American social order. So with that type of money, every black child in this country should be able to be educated. Every black child in this country should be able to be educated by a school in their own community. There we go. Y'all can take y'all Christmas money in Hartford, just your Christmas money that you spend on gifts, and build an independent school for every black child in the city. No more special ed, no more suspension, no more expulsion. In my school, there will be no expulsion or suspension. You know why? What the hell am I sending a black boy back to a black mother and when she don't know what to do with him? And the interesting thing about out-of-school suspension is what, y'all? The purpose of out-of-school suspension is to serve as a what? A consequence. You suspend the child so they go home and be upset that they were deprived from school. What child you know is going to feel upset because they didn't get a chance to learn that day? Is out-of-school suspension a consequence, or is it a reward? Mom ain't at home, she worked. Dad ain't at home, he worked. So out-of-school suspension does not eliminate misbehavior. In fact, it increases it. Because if I know I'm going to be sent home for not doing what I'm supposed to do and I don't want to be here, I want to be sent home more often. I got access to the TV, internet, my girlfriend's coming in and out the house. That's a vacation day. In fact, I might want one every week. You see? Now, where did out-of-school suspension originate? Out-of-school suspension originated from the early schools in America, which took place during the agricultural sector of American history, where there was always a parent home, because what? They had to take care of the crops. So if you got suspended in 1784, it was punishment. Because guess what? When your ass came home, your daddy put you out in the field. And you was out there pulling up crops and beets and corn. You didn't want that. So back then it was a punishment. But in 2013, where you got single parent homes, or even if you got 2-parent homes and they got to work to make ends meet, out of school suspension ain't no type of consequence. So why do they still do it? Because America's public school teachers do not want to be bothered with black children. So if I can send him away from me for a day, so be it. If I can send him away from me for another day, so be it. Well, you know it's not changing the behavior. I don't care. I just need a break from the Negro. Insanity, which is why it's a good thing to not let people know if you are unemployed, don't tell the school that. Too many mothers are telling the school too much of their business. If you tell the teacher that you don't work, you're going to be getting called up every day. Come get your son, because they know you ain't got a job. Stop telling them your business. If the father's not in the house, the school wouldn't know. I would tell them the father is in the house. Well, why he ain't been up here yet? Because he's going to be working in the day and he can't get here. You don't tell them your business because they will use it against you. Public school and child protective services, the people who take the kids from your family, they work hand in hand. Hand in hand. As a psychologist, I'm a mandated reporter. By law, I'm supposed to call you when you do anything that the white man says is not appropriate. And now we got black folks saying, well, the reason why my child don't know how to act is because I'll go to jail if I put my hands on him. That's not necessarily true. You're going to jail if you abuse your child. You're not going to jail for spanking your child. In fact, they will only take your children if you act like they got a right to take them. Let me give you an example. I knew of a father who smacked the piss out of his son because he got big and bad with his wife. Smacked the piss out of him. Son called the cops. Cops came to the house. Man went outside on the front step. Cops came up. Can I help you? Yes, we got a phone call from your son saying that you used physical force against him. Yes, I did. Son came to the door. Is this true? Your father hit you? He said, yes, he did. He said, well, sir, you're not allowed to put your hands on your son. If you do this again, we can confiscate your child. Father said, let me explain something to you. This is my house, and he's going to do what I say do in this house. If y'all want to take him, y'all take him. But in here, he's going to do what the hell I tell him to do. He looked to his son. He then looked to his son, and he told his son that if they take you, if you leave my house, don't come back because you're not coming back. Let this white man come in here and interfere with how I do what I do. You do not have a home in here again. Son thought about what his father told him. Scratched his head, took his ass in the house. Cop said, you have a nice day, sir, because he represented his manhood. He represented his manhood. If you cow down, then they're going to take your kids. But if you show no fear and say, this is the way it's going to be in my house, they will leave you alone. Because at the end of the day, everybody know half the reason our boys out here doing what they want because they ain't got no man putting a foot in their ass. They're getting too much feminine energy and not enough masculine energy. They get feminine energy at home. They get feminine energy at school. All the parents are mothers. All the teachers are women. 95% of America's public school teaching corps, black, white, or purple, are female. So if you got a boy who doesn't get enough masculine energy to begin with, and then you put him in a system where he's getting nothing but more feminine energy, and then white racist feminine energy most of the time, that's going to influence him to drop out. He's not dropping out because he doesn't like his education. He's dropping out because he doesn't like the fact that he's being dominated by women. His spirit doesn't allow for that. And he begins to do what? Rebel. Rebel. And some of y'all got to be careful because I know a lot of black folk who say, you know what I'm going to do? I don't like Hartford public schools, so I'm going to take my son and transfer him to the white suburb school.
Teach.
Do you know you just jump from the pot into the fire? Do you know he's going to get even more mistreated in the suburbs? He's going to be more likely referred for special ed in the suburbs. He's going to be more likely to be referred for ADHD evaluation in the suburbs than in the ghetto. And why is that? The white folk in the suburb got to the suburbs trying to leave you in Hartford. If you got the nerve to send your son out there with them, now they pissed off because you won't leave them alone. And your son going to catch the hell because of it. You don't put a black boy in a white private school because he's going to be taught to hate himself. And by the time he's in the 5th grade, you know what's going to happen? He's going to stop caring about his academics. He's going to say, my son don't want to go to school. He don't want to do his work. He used to love school. What happened to my son? What happened is you forced him to be taught by Europeans, and they crushed the desire to learn. And you got to be careful when you put your daughters in white schools. Why? Because even though she can make it academically, problem with her is they're going to do a job on her concept of beauty. And by the time she leave that white school, she's going to want to grade